Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's Monday. Y'all see my hair? Okay, these curls. I'm trying. Okay, growing this hair out is stressful. It just is. When you in this middle phase where it can come into a real skimpy ponytail and all that. Man, nobody got time for all that. But I'm living my afro and curly life today. So, I had a little design, not on this side. Yeah, it was this side. Had a little design that's real shaky and tragic right now. But I'm just giving y'all very natural, very like hip and in today, very curly afro today. Because I only have some hair in the middle. I don't have no hair on the sides and then just a little, trying to do a little something. So today we're gonna talk about relationships today. And I'm really excited. I have notes and everything for this talk today. Sure, get your life together for this talk today. So as a side note, while I'm checking in with y'all, how was y'all's weekend? It goes by super fast or whatever, but how was your weekend? I have something exciting for y'all. So I have my testers. I'm coming out with a candle with my new book. I'm going to have a beatbox, right? So get your life together with a beatbox. But that will be coming to y'all too. So I have my little testers, my little babies, my samples of my scents. I'm so excited to be able to share this with y'all. So that will be coming to you soon. Make sure you subscribe to my website. Excuse me, and you pre-order my book, but I'm gonna have the boxes coming out soon. Okay, so that'll be coming to y'all. All right, let's get into what we need to get into today. Traditional versus modern relationships. So I'm gonna start with putting a question in the chat. I want to put a question in the chat. Which do you prefer? I'm typing it in for y'all. Traditional or modern? Which do you prefer? Traditional or modern? So, of course, the exploration of relationships has been a thing since forever, right? I wanted to explore this whole concept of traditional versus modern relationships for several reasons. I think both can get a bad rap, but I really think it depends on the person and on the couple, right? And their values, beliefs, etc. One of the biggest things that I noticed that influence preferred relationship types are like values and beliefs, and especially where the person grew up, right? So if you're someone who, I'll give you an example. If you're someone who grew up in the South, right? Most Southern folks, and I'm not saying all, I'm not speaking for everybody. Most Southern folks come from a traditional relationship perspective, right? The man is the provider. He pays all the bills. He goes to work. He's the protector, etc., like that kind of framework. The woman takes care of the house and the kids. They are the nurturer, the caretaker, in the home space, right? The guy may cut the grass and, do outside things, wash the cars, that kind of thing. There's also this idea or setup where women are expected to, and I'm going to use the word submit because I think submission is necessary relationships on both ends, but I'm going to use it for the sake of this particular defining like conversation, right? All right. So the woman is expected to submit to their men in a very, I think, different way in some ways than modern relationships. So the way that I've kind of organized my thoughts around modern relationships, and I'm pulling up my notes, y'all. So the way that I've organized my thoughts around modern relationships, it means, or the way that I've organize it is women are traditionally now the breadwinners in modern relationships. Responsibilities around the house are flexible and negotiable. There are a lot of variances in responsibilities. Like you have some stay-at-home dads. You have men that are the rearers of the children, and et cetera, et cetera. The women are out pumping it out. Or you have relationships where both the man and the woman work full-time positions, right? And they're pumping it out. And then they kind of flex out how things look at home. Or you have some relationships where both the man and the woman work. And she may still come home and do the domestic, what I would say is domestic work, like cook, clean, fold clothes, that kind of thing. Depends on how it's set up. Males are participating more in child rearing, and there are different alignments of power, control, and value, right? So I do think traditionally, everyone held value, and I say everyone is in the man and woman, or the partners held different value in the relationships. I think the alignment of power was also a little bit different, right? The accountability to the children was a bit different. It's so interesting, even when I talk to older folks and hearing them talk about, what was the expectation for your husband? Oh, he was supposed, and I think for men, expressing, well, I was just supposed to go out, make sure I protect my family, make sure that I bring the check home, and get up and do it again. That those are my responsibilities, making sure that I do my part in that way. But if you notice now, people are expecting a lot more and a lot of different things in relationships that are contradictory or varying to what most people in traditional relationships would say that they want. Now, are there people that still want traditional relationships? Hands down, right? But I think the challenge now is that some of the reasons why traditional relationships were set up the way that they were was because it worked in the time that it worked, right? There was a reason why they were set up that way. And I think it spoke a lot to not only survival, but how the family could work most in sync with the environment that they were given at the time, the norms, et cetera, that they were provided with at the time. So now in 2021, how do we make those things make sense now? Well, I think now it's harder for single income households to survive. Is it possible? Yes. But the question is, do you want to survive on, $40,000 or live or survive on $40,000 for a household of 4 or 5? Is that something that you're willing to do? What I'm finding is a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They want more, right? And I think, of course, our society pushes more. You should want more. You should go for more. You should have more. Oh, look at how, you being able to go travel every other month, or take these extravagant trips, or buy these extravagant items. But in order to do that, you have to work more and have more and make more. And so I think now it's become less appealing to live off of one income, especially if that income is below the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 range. And if you look, most of the statistically, most African American men make around $41,000, $42,000 a year. So let's just say we're taking the average guy and saying, hey, he makes around $41,000, $42,000 a year. Is this something you would be willing, would you be willing to live off of just his income? And are you okay with that? Are you willing to make the sacrifices it requires? Or do you want to bring more into the household? So how much are you willing to make? Because one of the other things that I notice is that I hear a lot of women wanting and pushing men to say, well, no, you need to make more. No, you need to make more. Well, what if he's completely satisfied with bringing in his solid, stable, $42,000 a year? You make more. You go out and you produce more. But what if he's a great dad? And what if he's an awesome provider? What if he is consistent? And focused and puts in a lot of effort? Do you want him to because listen, I think the thing that gets lost in all of this whole make more, do more, bring more to the table as far as finances are concerned is the men that make more and the women that make more, they also have to work more. They have to put more effort, energy, and time into producing more. That comes at a cost too. Everything costs. It's going to cost something. So to just say, well, I want you to work 100 hours a week at your job. Then I want you to come home and do this and this and this and this and this as if you just didn't work 100 hours. How are we going to make this make sense and balance it all in the framework of our family? And vice versa for women. Hey, there's women out here beating the pavement. Do you hear me? Making moves, taking names, making money, right? And if she's going out there and doing that, as her spouse, her partner, how are you aligning yourself with that framework? Are you realigning what the expectations are and responsibilities with her to make it make sense in the framework of your family or your relationship? And I think that's where the modern piece comes in. When I think of modern, I just think of, there's a lot of variances and flexibility. I think there's a lot of negotiation to be had. But I also want to say that sometimes I think with modern relationships, there can be a loss of reality. Like there still has to be some structure and organization. There still has to be some accountability and consistency. And not that that doesn't take away from the flexibility of it. There just has to be some kinds of clarity around roles and responsibilities, right? And as a couple, just figuring out what that looks like. But sometimes I think what happens is, one, we have access to social media. We listen to people on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever. And we sometimes think that applies to us, and it always does not. Okay? Relationships and the way that they're built and and if they function productively or not are really up to those two people. It depends on what you're starting with, what your values and beliefs are. If you're someone who is absolutely raised traditional, right? And you are courting someone who is modern, y'all have to have some very serious conversations about child rearing, about roles and responsibilities, about expectations. Because what I find that happens is, by the time that y'all are so passionately, lustfully into each other, you want to supersede those conversations or look the other way because you like them so much or you love them now, not realizing that that's going to influence how you treat them later on in the relationship, especially if you don't get it locked down quickly. And how they treat you, that influences the success of the relationship, the productivity of the relationship. Because those with traditional and modern, that clashes a lot, right? Especially if you have extremists. If you have someone that's on either opposite end of the spectrum, it can be extreme. So just making sure that you're accounting for that. I don't think there's anything wrong with either. You just have to make sure your relationship is built for that. You have to make sure the individuals are accepting, satisfied, and accountable for what they agree to. Because it can be challenging. And again, do I think it's right, wrong, or indifferent? No, I don't. I think both of them have their benefits, right? And the cool thing that I've seen happen with traditional relationships are longevity, right? I've seen longevity in traditional relationships. My grandparents have been married. I reference them all the time. My grandparents have been married for 65 years. Now, did my grandmother work? Yes. But was she also primarily responsible for child rearing, et cetera, et cetera? Yes. And it worked for them. And they, again, are in their 80s. They're together. They're married. They're happy. They love each other. All good. But is that everybody's story? No, it's not. It's just not. It's not everybody's story. Traditionally, I don't vibe with traditional relationships. I was raised in Los Angeles. Both of my parents, They both worked. My dad worked and had a side hustle and to kick in and try to make sure he brought as much in to the household as he could. My mom, you know, wanted to go to the next level and try to work her way up in her career because she wanted to have a career. And we saw that, you know, were there a lot of sacrifices made? Yes. You know, my dad was the coach of the basketball team and spent a lot of time with us and, you know, rode go-karts with us and was the coach of our basketball team and attended our games and did all of this stuff. My mom primarily cooked and did all that. But my dad was what I call a clean freak. My dad cleaned, I think, even more than my mom did. So the dynamics in our household were a little bit different. But, and I was, like I said, I've seen it even with my parents marrying, after they divorced, marrying other people and them having successful second relationships, second marriages, right? And then being able to organize the responsibilities a little bit differently than when they were together. And whatever works for them, works for them. I find that I like the idea of being domestic, what I call, again, this is just my own terminology, what I call domestic. I love cooking for my family. I love being able to provide in the way of like nurturing and child rearing and that kind of thing. But do I expect my husband to work? Yes. Do I expect him to help some around the house? Yes. You know, do I expect him to do a little bit more than I think traditionally? Because he's traditional. So our perspectives on what should be are very different. And just, we didn't talk about half of the stuff that we should have from the beginning. We didn't. And that's one of our mess ups is we didn't get it in front of it early. We were just so in love and we were just like, oh my God, they're the best thing ever. And oh, I'm going to do whatever. And, you know, not realizing, man, you got to hold this shit up, man, for years. Like if you started, you got to be able to continue it. So as I began to get more into my career, like when we met, I was working 7 days a week, 7 days a week. I was working 7 days a week. And I love my life, man. I was good. Like I had crossed Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, 2012. Hey, baby girls. I was working 7 days a week, but I also had a personal life and I was out hanging out and having a good time. But working hard was just my last name. I've always had 2 or 3 jobs, you know, side hustles. That is the way that I live. I don't believe in having less. I believe in having more. That has always been my desire, not necessarily his. You know, we were just telling, we had dinner with a couple yesterday, and we were just talking about how, you know, when my husband met me, he said, look, I'm going to make $30,000 a year. And I want to have a couple kids. And I want to spend a lot of time with my family. And that is happiness to me. And I remember thinking and saying, I'm cool with that because I don't mind working. You can do 30, but I'm probably going to do, my goal at the time, my goal was $150,000 a year. I'm going to work for the government. This was my goal. I'm going to work for the government and I'm going to make $150,000 a year. So we get your 30, we get my 150, we almost at 2. We good. We're good. I don't have to be a millionaire. I just want to live a life that doesn't feel like a struggle, right? I don't want to have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck. I don't, right? Because one, at that time, I didn't manage my money well any damn way. I didn't manage my money well with the money I was making. I wasn't managing it well anyway. So my thought was like, work harder, not manage smarter. That's neither here nor there. But I think of the combination of the two. Okay, if you can bring in yours and I don't mind working and I actually enjoy it, let me do me and bringing our superpowers together. We gonna make this shit make sense. So as I started building my business, I had to be home. I wasn't home a lot. I was working 14 and 16-hour days, right? And so Ray would pick up Mahogany, my husband would pick up our daughter, pick her up, get her fed, spend time, get her down. So because most times When I came home, she was asleep in the beginning. I was hustling, I was grinding, I was keeping my head down. I had to work a lot to get a lot. And so as that happens, a lot of our roles adjusted. So that's the other thing I want to kind of bring up is considering what your goals are and how that may look in the future and what adjustments you may have to make. That's where the flexibility and negotiation comes in. It may not be long term, but even for temporary purposes, you have to know, okay, if I want to go, if I, have career goals, or I want to go back to school, you have to know that you have a partner that's willing to support you in doing that. And you're not alone trying to do that and everything else. You guys have to be clear about whose roles are what and who's willing to do what. Trust and believe. You don't want to wait till it comes and then you looking at each other like, God damn it, I would have known it from the fucking beginning. Ain't nobody got time for this. That's not where you want to get. That's not where you want to get, because it gets real rough by that time. It gets real rough. So just be thoughtful about what your tradition, be thoughtful about what your values and beliefs are. Be thoughtful about what your expectations and role expectations are as it relates to a partner. So as you're dating, as you're figuring things out with your partner, you guys can have some clear conversations about what you expect to happen and negotiate from the beginning. So everyone is clear going into this. Okay, this is what I want and need. Let's figure out how to make this happen. Let's make sure everybody's getting something out of the deal. Because whether traditional or non-traditional or modern, you got to get something out of the deal. Nobody wants to be in something where they feel like they have to sacrifice everything and they get so little in return. So be thoughtful about that. Even traditionally in those relationships, everybody was getting something out of the deal. Whether it be safety, whether it be financial safety, whether it be comfort, whether it be stability, consistency, folks were getting stuff out of the deal, right? So think of what you need to get out of the deal to make it make sense for you, regardless of the relationship type. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this. Please tag a friend, please share. If y'all have any questions for me, please hit me up. I will be back next Monday, or if you didn't catch all of this, you can catch it on Facebook or on YouTube. Share with a friend, and I'll see y'all next week. Okay? Peace.